want to talk about something today as far as what my critics have to say. You know, um, he messaged Dale Berater who said, Paul's a clown who misrepresents my motives and beliefs for his own agenda. Way to use the white nationalist card as a cop out. I've recorded all the violent shit he said for the past 2 years, and he has no room to talk. So you've been stalking me for 2 years because you're so concerned about me. That is really, really functional and healthy. That's what well-adjusted individuals do. They single out one individual and stalk them and record all their shit and don't leave them alone. In spite of the fact that they've asked you to leave them alone multiple times, you don't back off. You don't leave them alone in spite of repeated requests. You don't stop recording their videos. You cyber stalk them. You look at all their videos to thumb them down. You organize a crew of cyber stalkers to thumb their videos down the moment they go up. You harass them repeatedly. You dog them endlessly when all they want is to be left alone by you. And then you said that you it has nothing to do with his political beliefs and more to do with his psychotic, threatening rhetoric. Psychotic, threatening rhetoric of wanting conservatives right. See, this is what I mean about conservatives and their large amygdalas. You know, this enlarged amygdala makes them perceive a non-existent threat, me, as a threat when I'm not a threat at all. That's your hypersensitive enlarged amygdala picking up on a threat that doesn't really exist. Distorting somebody that isn't truly a threat into a threat because of that stupid brain, that maladaptive enlarged amygdala. Seriously, start practicing mindfulness meditation and shrink it so that you can see reality for what it is, because I'm not a threat, but you perceive me as one. So let's get into why.
Murder has inspired documentaries, podcasts, and even games. But our obsession with these stories got us wondering, are there certain traits or factors that make somebody more likely to kill someone? And are you capable of murder? To start, have you ever thought about it before? Well, this isn't actually that meaningful because it's so common. A survey of almost 1,000 students found that 76% of women and 91% of men reported having one vivid and memorable homicidal thought. In fact, other reports show men may have roughly 10.
So, my critic says, and let me quote him, what he said to Dale Berater. This is what he says. This has nothing to do with his political belief and more to do with his psychotic rhetoric of wanting conservatives round up, shot, massacred, on top of serious. See, this is what I mean. He perceives me as a threat, you know, and these conservatives. This is what their brain does. It distorts a non-existent threat into a threat. This has nothing to do with his political beliefs and more to do with the psychotic, threatening rhetoric of wanting conservatives rounded up, shot, and massacred. Now, I had a violent fantasy. Let's rewind this video and watch.
Because it's so common.
It's
A survey of almost.
Now, what does he say?
To start, have you ever thought about it before?
Have you ever thought about it before?
Well, this isn't actually that meaningful because.
Well, this isn't actually that meaningful.
It's so common.
Because it's so common.
A survey of almost 1,000 students found that 76% of.
Over 76% of women and 91% of men have had one. You know, so I've had psychotic threatening rhetoric. I've had a psychotic threatening rhetoric of wanting conservatives rounded up, shot, and massacred. Yeah, I have, but that just places me in the same category that 91% of men are in.
One vivid and memorable homicidal.
So literally, almost all of them have had one. The only thing that separates me from most of them is that I went on here and made mine out loud here on YouTube.
And women hurry in the past year. Is your heart beating fast
Yes.
right now? Then you're probably safe.
So since my heart is beating fast, I'm probably a safe person.
Heart rate measured when they were 18 years old as part of a military service test. In the decades that followed, the men with the lowest resting heart rates were 39% more likely than the high resting heart rate group to commit a violent crime. Additionally, a separate study found that a low heart rate was linked to stalking behavior. A study of murderers who plead not guilty by reason of a mental disorder had their brain scans compared to age and sex-matched controls. Turns out, they did have lower activity in the prefrontal cortex, which makes sense as it's involved in decision-making and moderating social behavior. They also found higher activity in the limbic system, which is the part of the brain more likely to generate pure emotion like anger and reduced self-control. Or maybe you carry the warrior gene, another name for the MAO-A gene or monoamine oxidase, and it's a gene that we all carry, but some of us, approximately 33%, carry a variant that is linked with aggression. Now, all these factors make a case for nature over nurture, but of course, environment plays a role as well. Having this warrior gene variant does not necessarily mean you will be more aggressive, but having this variant in combination with environmental factors such as suffering abuse increases your odds. Further studies have found that 68% of serial killers received some type of childhood abuse, which is a much higher rate than normal. Violence and aggression is related to a poor diet, particularly a lack of omega-3 fatty acid.
Now, this may be true, you know? So, because I watched this video, I went out and ordered some omega-3 fatty acids off of Amazon.
A double-blind study found this fatty
Because
acid
I'm not what this motherfucker is so concerned about.
Violent offenses by 37% in prison inmates. Also, stay safe on Sundays. A CDC report concluded that this is the most popular day for murders. Of course, violence does not equal homicide, but if we are looking for a predictor in the makings of a murderer, we have to investigate a person's prior incidences. One analysis found that over half of the women murdered in the US were killed by a current or former partner, and about a third of the male killers were known to be a potential threat ahead of the attack. Another study found that prior non-fatal strangulation of a partner was associated with a 7 times increased risk of homicide, which leads to another glaring factor. If you are a man, you are more likely to murder. Though women make up half of the population, they commit only 14.7% of murders. But why? Committing murder is risky and can have severe costs, such as not having access to your kids. A study on child survival in 28 populations around the world over 3 centuries found that losing your mother can significantly reduce a child's chances of survival, but this is not the case for losing a father. As a result, some hypothesize that from the perspective of passing on your genes, women have more at stake if they are guilty of homicide. But
now, what is there to say about this? I have a partner that I'm in love with, so of course I don't want to go to prison.
Why murder at all? Though controversial, some scientists argue that throughout our evolutionary history, the benefits of murder often outweigh the costs.
I just want to acquire more and more capital so that I can move out in that direction closer to my partner,
suggesting that murder is an evolutionary strategy. In fact, a study of over 4 million recorded deaths from over 1,000 different species of mammals found that lethal violence increased with evolution and that primates, including humans, are 6 times more likely to murder their own species than other animals. Of course, our rate of murder has decreased dramatically since the medieval period, which is often considered to be the most violent, at which time 12% of all recorded deaths were attributed to murder. Compare that to today, where the rate is only 1.33%. Of course, 33% of murders go unsolved, which is scary. And with today's AI technology, the idea of what is real or who did what becomes more difficult to discern. We have a new video that looks at some of the...
Now, I would never be able to see my partner again if I were to do any of the things that I've fantasized about. Because I'd be thrown in prison. And what I did and what I said out loud is something that 91% of men do. Most of them just only report it to scientists when asked these questions instead of speaking it out loud. So, if I'm so concerning, then 91% of all men are concerning.